Francis, going back to the core reason, the land subsistence, and then the desire to protect those, talk about that, and also how did you convey that to people who had already moved way beyond a subsistence or agricultural, primarily society, and explain to them how people up here lived, because there was no television, very little radio, no telephones, and just one Nanook movie, I guess. Nanook.
Well, I'd like to thank my sister Eva. Eva, she's like what Agnes said, one of those who hauled everybody around. She hauled congressmen, she hauled legislators, she hauled board members, and all of us in the family when we needed a place to stay or to go from the airport to meetings. So Eva, would you please stand up? I want to recognize her. She spent and my sister Ida, living in Michigan, had did the same thing for Adeline Katung and Hobson, myself, and my father. They put us up and made the difference, and how we conveyed how our way of life is and how important subsistence is to us is by our presence and by talking to whoever would listen to us. And when it came to lobbying the Congress, when it came down to close to where the land claims might be possible, we, as a AFN board, everybody showed up down to D.C. who could make it at the time, but we all got assignments as who we were going to go and visit in the halls of Congress, and we split up in pairs. I was paired up with George Miller from Kenai, and Kenaitze, and what a wonderful man. He and I were paired up, and so by the time we were done with our hoofing it through the Capitol, neither he and I could walk very well, and so we were supporting each other, walking along. But what it is, by us, each one of us being there, everyone brought to the table their experiences and their culture and their way of life, and us being there and able to articulate it, but we had the same story, the very same story. We all come from native claimed areas that belong to tribes, and tribes are very important, and tribes are made up of tribal members who live off the land because there is no state economy. The only thing there was the federal funded programs that kept the state of Alaska going. And there was fishing, there was some timber, but the huge bonanza of oil was wanting to be tapped, but we were in the way. And yet we were cash poor, but land rich. And we love our land, we love our people, we are family based. And so when you talk about who you love, what you love, and what you love life, like my father said this, he says, we have to take care of our own, but when we succeed, the whole country is healthy, when we do well. And our goal is to see God. God is love. So those things, it's easy to talk about your own because you're not self-conscious about your poverty, your probably illiteracy, but we were just so fortunate to have brilliant leaders that stepped up, come from all walks of life, come from every level of education, but one determination: we love our country, we love our people, we believe in the government that exists. We have our own governments. When the state of Alaska, which was now a state of Alaska recognizes our way of life, this will be healed. But the federal government has a responsibility to those sovereign tribes. And that was the critical thing. Tyonek stepped up. They got their recognition. They supported the lobby effort of the AFN. Tlingit and Haida stepped up. They loaned us money. We needed that money. Nobody had any funds. I want to thank every family in the state of Alaska that comes from a village that had a part in supporting the effort. You are the ones that did it. You allowed us to leave home, leave you with following that dream of getting land ownership and recognition. It's long overdue. Most of the folks that work so hard are in heaven. We are spiritual people. They are in heaven. They love their neighbor. They love their neighbor and that's a charge. You love your neighbor because that's the way to get to God. So with that huge spirit, the Creator is important. I felt a very strong unity, very respectable, very honorable people. Everybody sacrificed. We were blessed to have such brilliant people that set aside their own lives with the dream that became a reality only because they wanted to take the oil, and it's always national precedence. But this is the time. A charge to the younger generation, you need to know who you are. You need to know your land base. There's lots of work to be done. We have the charge from our ancestors. They took care of the land. They took care of their people. They took care of everybody that came into the country. Not a soul was lost. They went out and found everybody that came through that got lost. Provided for their welfare because they knew you take care of your neighbor.
Marlene, at what point in your life did you get involved? And what was it like for you the first time you left your region to go to a meeting? And who was the biggest big shot you ever talked to?
I would say probably the biggest big shot, I'll answer that one first, was John Borbridge. He was our Tlingit and Haida president, and to me he was the one that was the big shot. I was a young single mother, and I was concerned with the education being provided in the village to our kids, and that's how I started out being involved, because I had heard a teacher saying, uncertified teacher, saying that you didn't have to worry, that these were just Tlinkits and they weren't going to go anywhere. So you taught them how to count to 10 and say their ABCs. That was all that was really needed. And we had some other leadership in the state that came to the village that kind of had the same idea. And so that's how I got involved. I ran for the school board. I went to city council meetings. I was elected to the school board. I was the president for 20-some years. And we didn't have a high school when I started there. We ended up, with the help of Governor Egan, getting a high school in Hoonah. And from there I went to try to work on getting proper child care for the ladies that worked in the crab cannery or in the other cannery and had to leave their children alone. And so when the war on poverty started, Governor Egan asked me if I would serve on ASCAP, which was OEO programs were started out under the state of Alaska, and ASCAP was formed, which was the Alaska State Community Action Program. And I did. I served on it, and then we decided to be really have an impact on rural Alaska. We needed to get it out from under the state and become a nonprofit of our own. And so we formed Rural Cap, which covered all of the state of Alaska other than Anchorage, which Anchorage was covered by their own community action program that John Buckholz ran. But from Rural Cap, we were able to do a lot to help the rural people. And with that, they also several times paid our way to go to Washington, D.C. to meet with OEO. I mean, I had the privilege of meeting with the Kennedys, and in fact, Bobby Kennedy's oldest daughter, Kathleen, came to Hoonah and stayed with me the whole summer to help the ladies work on proper child care. We ended up being able to get a parent-child center in Hoonah and a parent-child center in Kotzebue under that program. I guess I really liked meeting these people, but that wasn't the biggest thing. We would fly all night. We'd go to Seattle. They'd charter a jet out of Seattle, and the war and poverty people would come from all over. We'd get on the jet. We'd fly all night to D.C. We'd lobby all day, and then we'd get back on the jet and fly back across country so we didn't have to pay for hotels.
Wow.
But we were young then, and I had stayed up a few nights all night before. So this just was not a real new experience, but
What was
I probably
it?
stayed up with some of these ladies. But that was really the good time. I was the only woman on the executive committee of the Tlingit and Haida Central Council for the first 25, 30 years of the Central Council community. And I served, and I traveled to D.C. and lobbied with all of the rest of the council, which John Borbridge was our magnificent speaker and magnificent leader and really helped us. We had people like Roger Lang, and I know some of you that are over 40 will remember Roger, and people like him. Clarence Jackson, who still serves on the Alaska board, with Harvey Marvin and Richard Keto, Gilbert Gunderson. These people that were absolutely dedicated. We have had someone from almost every community in Southeast, and we worked really, really, really hard. Mm-hmm. I would like to say that one of the women that wasn't there when we first started, but came in right away after, was Irene Rowan. And people don't know, but if it weren't for Irene, we would not have a Klukwan Inc. They were left out of the original bill. And through Irene and John Borbridge, and were able to work to get Klukwan Inc. included and the land base. So thank you, Irene, for doing that.